What's going on, my dominators? Today we have such an amazing podcast. And I know that I say that often, but if you're doing waterment and you've got any kind of success, this particular episode is going to create so much value for your business. And more importantly, the capabilities of a potential bolt-on are absolutely amazing. But before we jump into the podcast, I just want to make a couple of quick public service announcements for all of you Restoration Nation out there. Remember, if you are enjoying the show, if you're getting value from any of the guests, or if you want to hear from a guest, or you just want to be heard, because we do want to hear from you, make sure that you pick up the phone. And remember that we have our hotline where you can just leave a voicemail, leave your thoughts, leave your comments, let us know who you'd want to hear next, and or comment on a past episode. Or if you are staying abreast of what's going on our website, restorationdomination.com, and you get to see who our upcoming guests are, you could always drop a quick voicemail. And what we'll do is we'll give you a shout out on the show just to show you the love and support that you're showing us. Besides that, before we jump in, I want to go ahead and drop a quick little shout out for our show sponsors. Of course, our platinum sponsors, Carlos Machine, the Claims Machine, which has the legal corner each and every single month. Make sure that you catch that episode here live on Restoration Nation. And also Lawyer Brit, which also has the legal corner. So big shout out to our platinum sponsors. Also, every single month we're going to be dropping a new episode. So if you have any legal questions or public adjusting questions, these are going to be the pros that can go ahead and answer those for you. Big shout out also to CNR Magazine, which again, if you haven't gotten your subscription of CNR Magazine as of yet, just go on over to cnrmagazine.com. Click the big red button, and that's it. You'd be subscribed and keep your finger on the pulse of the market. And last but certainly not least, Company Cam, but as per usual, we'll talk a little bit more about them later. And now let's go ahead and talk about this episode because it was absolutely amazing. We were joined by Kameron and Rocky Hensley, the founders and operators of One Tom Plumber, and such an amazing organization. Rocky Hensley brings a tremendous amount of experience. I mean, he's also he's got his own restoration company, Icon, which many of you may have heard of and or recognize, and has got a tremendous amount of franchising experience. But what he's done along with Kameron is just created such an amazing bolt-on business to a lot of us restoration companies, to where if you're looking for more commercial work, if you want to have a steady stream of water mitigation work and dry out work, things of that nature, it's only natural to try to get into the plumbing game. But even for myself, when I was having this conversation with them, I was like, well, man, and mitigate. What does a mitigation guy necessarily know about plumbing? I mean, that's an entirely, other business, and most people can't even handle one side of the business, much less bolt on something else. And the way that they've broken down everything is absolutely amazing. And this just there's so much value in this podcast and in this interview because both of these individuals are extremely tactical, very analytical. Nothing has gone into their model without testing, stopping, and retesting again. And I think they're going to get so much value from this particular episode. As per usual, grab a pen and a sheet of paper. I think that there's going to be a lot of notes that you could potentially take away from this podcast. So without further ado, let's jump into the podcast. Let's go.
Owning any type of restoration business is demanding of your time, your energy, and resources. And that's why we're here. This is Restoration Domination. If you're a contractor in water mitigation, mold remediation, biohazard cleanup, roofers, or public adjusters, you'll learn how to dominate using some of the techniques and strategies that our guests will share. We'll interview top industry insiders, movers and shakers, hustlers and hackers, and anyone dominating their industry. This is Restoration Domination. Hustle, hack, and dominate. And here's your host, Rico Garcia.
What's up, Restoration Nation? Rico Garcia here. This one, and I know I say this a lot, but this one's really, really exciting because the numbers are exciting, the concept is exciting, the growth is exciting. So if you're in your truck right now and you're on the way to the job site, call the job site, say, hey, look, I'm going to be a little bit behind schedule. Pull on over, pull out that company pen, grab a pad, and start taking some notes because I think that this is going to be a good one. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Are you ready to help us dominate?
Absolutely.
What's up, Rico?
Awesome, cool. So do me a favor, give us a quick little intro for the people out there that have never seen you, have never heard of you before. Just give us a quick little individual introduction to each, and then we'll dive into the rest of the episode.
All right, so I'm Kameron Hensley, currently president and co-founder of One Town Plumber.
And I'm Rocky Hensley. I own Icon Property Rescue in Cincinnati. Have built and sold several businesses along the way. Own real estate and a couple of franchises. I own a couple of 1-800-Packout franchises and some other franchises. And then I'm one of the co-founders of One Town Plumber, the plumber whose name is his number.
Nice. So let's just dive right into it. We were kind of talking off camera because I wanted to get a real good concept of, this amazing machine that you guys have built. And I talked to a lot of individuals and I talked to a lot of bright minds, but you guys have created this amazing system within the restoration arena that I'm just really excited for everybody to hear about if they're not familiar with it. And I think we're going to get a lot of wheels turning here. So let's go ahead and start taking a deep dive. Let's talk about, One Town Plumber, what the whole concept is all about and how you guys, let's start with the concept. Where did this idea come from?
So I think it all started when Rocky was actually hired by Roto-Rooter here in Cincinnati as the consultant that brought him into water damage.
Yeah, I hate that getting out there, but it's absolutely true. They're based in Cincinnati, Roto-Rooter is. They're owned by a company called KPIs. And they were about $1 million a year referral base for me. That's how we had originally built Icon Property Rescue, was through plumber referrals. And they were by far our largest because they're about a $30 million plumbing company here in Cincinnati. And they found out how much I was paying. I think at that time we were paying $350 a lead. And basically they said, well, if you can pay me $350 a lead, there's something in this restoration thing. And then they hired me to be a consultant to get them into it. And it was a lot of money. So I knew it was going to end soon. So I did it. And what I didn't realize, what it brought to the table was all the commercial work, the commercial restoration business that Roto-Rooter started getting, and we were getting from Roto-Rooter. And I had signed a 2-year non-compete with them. And so about halfway through the consulting agreement, they tried to turn me into an employee. I had no interest in that because I'm a serial entrepreneur. I love being an entrepreneur and certainly didn't want to work for a large corporation. And so I wrote out my 2-year non-compete. But while I was doing that, I was putting a plumbing company together solely for my Icon Property Rescue business. And then, with the brand that we had put together, I kept getting a lot of people saying, they were interested. They loved the concept. They loved the fact that how much business it was bringing into my restoration company. And so Cameron and I sat down and we hired some consultants, put about $1 million into it, and built this brand and system and put it in place. And then we did it here in Cincinnati, Columbus, and Dayton, and now we're taking it out to the masses. And we're only selling to restoration folks. We're not selling to anyone that's not in the restoration business because the whole purpose is to make the restoration business stronger and to help our brothers compete against people that used to help generate them water damage, and now they're their competitors. Like Roto-Rooter.
Right, exactly. And that we were talking about that, and I was like, yeah, at least regardless of how it worked out, you saw the writing on the wall. You're like, wait, hold on. And also vice versa, right? Like even the plumbers are like, oh, wait, hold on. This guy is giving me $350 a lead or $1,000. I mean, again, we're all part of the group, so we all know what we're talking about. There's people out there that are paying $1,500 for a lead, and again, the relationship is 100% based on money. Now, look, how you generate your business, that's on you. But at some point, that plumber is going to be like, wait a second. this guy is willing to pay me X amount of dollars per lead. There's got to be something to this business. So what I really like is that you said, hey, you developed this like whole system where it's like, let them see the opportunity, but then let's still go ahead and create this vehicle that gives them the opportunity to genuinely participate in it, and everybody still makes money, which to me, I think is just that's like the core of a good entrepreneur.
Well, thank you. It was a little bit out of desperation, but a little bit out of I wanted more commercial work. I loved the commercial work that I was getting from Roto-Rooter, and I was about to lose it. So it was a little bit out of necessity. It was a little bit out of desperation, but it was also about the money. Right. It was good money. It was really good money.
And that's really big. One of the biggest surprises for us. Before we went into it, we knew how profitable plumbing was. We knew that it was way more profitable than even water damage, but we didn't realize just how much commercial work we would generate with our one-time plumber model. And actually, I don't know if now's the time or we can circle back later, but when we were first starting up the locations, like for example, in our Greenville location, we just went all out on generating water damages. And I think our very first month, we generated, what was it, 20 commercial water damages, which was way more than they could handle and actually made us look pretty bad.
Yeah, they only got to 13, so they alienated. So as we've developed this, we've learned how to push the gas pedal but it's also why we're pretty good at vetting our franchises that we onboard, because they need to be able to handle a lot of water damage. Or if they can't, they're probably, I hate to say this, but probably not a good fit for this business model.
Right. Right. So cool. So that's where you got the idea from. You're out of the non-compete. You got your consultants. You're ready to rock and roll. You start piecing it together. What was that like initial journey like? Because the initial journey, like everybody likes to see like where you're at now, right? Like it's because once you make it, right? Or you're in the process of creating this amazing machine. But in the beginning, it's like you're still figuring stuff out. Like everything always looks good on paper, but then once you're in the mix, you're like, oh wait, hold on. Luckily you guys had plenty of experience kind of going into this. But what was that like first like experience for you guys?
It was pretty brutal at first. We actually shut the business down twice just because we felt like we weren't doing it right. We were doing things just like any other plumbing company. We were doing remodels and repipes and
new construction.
And we're just like there has to be a better way.
So let me just stop it right there, right? Because there is this mental aspect that we just have to unpack. And unfortunately, I personally feel that out in the open, most people don't talk about it. Like they'll just kind of gloss over this, right? Yeah. You guys had something already. It was planned for. You were getting work, potentially keeping guys busy. But then you said, stop for a second. It's not really, it's working, but it's not working the way that it should be working. And yes, you were busy, but it didn't have a certain profit margin that you were looking for. It just wasn't the right formula. And the reason why I think this is so important, because this just goes back to the mindset aspect. It's like, yes, it's working, but you know that it could have worked better. So what was that like thought process? Why was it quote unquote working, but not working?
Well, it wasn't generating enough water damage, for one, and two, the numbers that we did on initial thing was we felt like that we could stay above 80% gross profits on these jobs, and when it got down to 60, it just wasn't what we had anticipated. And then neither one of us were ever in the plumbing business, so we thought that you opened a plumbing company a certain way, just like everybody's been doing across the country for years, and we realized that we just became every other plumbing company.
And we spent months and months researching what other plumbing companies are doing really well and what's working for them. And the model we saw is that pretty much every successful plumbing company, without fail, they schedule their guys out for 2 days. So at first, like we would start to panic when the guys would come in the morning and they had no work to do. And now we realize if you're going to be an emergency service plumber, that's really how it has to be. And we really just embraced the feast or famine nature of the emergency service business, really just like it's a water damage business.
Right, and just to kind of like water this down, to just to make sure that I'm really extracting like what we need to be getting out of this thing, right? certain patterns here. Number one, you got to do your research. Like you got to do heavy research, which by definition, that means that you have to take your technician hat on and you got to put your entrepreneur hat on. You have to do the research. Second thing is you got to commit to tracking numbers, because maybe, and so you have a goal, but then you also, it's like, great, are you really even hitting that goal?
Militant.
Right, you have to be vigilant about it. Then the other thing is looking for patterns, identifying patterns from people that have already come before you that are successful. But this takes a lot of commitment and again, I don't know how many times you've seen this, but how many times haven't you seen an entrepreneur gets into a trade and he's like, I wanted 80, but I'm getting 60. It is what it is. I guess this is just how everybody else does it. And then they just hate the process, right?
Well, luckily we were fairly financially sound, so we were able to shut it down, reboot, and do it again. And what we realized, to Cameron's point, is what made other successful plumbers successful wasn't what we wanted. We've completely recreated, and we have our own plumbing system. We're not like any other plumber that we've actually ran into across the country at this point. It's its own system, and it's kind of a newfangled way to do plumbing. And it's all about generating high profit plumbing and feed your restoration company lots of commercial water damage and residential, but mostly commercial.
Right. So I know that we were talking about, like who really this model is for. And we're going to do a little bit of jumping around because there's like so many like little honey holes here within your story. So, so we're talking about like who this is really for, and ideally, who is this most attractive for, right? The restoration contractor who's making X amount, who wants to do what?
So, I mean, really what we hear over and over is there's 4 reasons why people really gravitate towards our business and why almost they're talking us into getting in the business. So the first reason is they're doing really between $1 and $3 million in commercial water damage, and they want to rapidly double that.
Or water damage in general.
Yeah, or water damage in general.
Some are doing no commercial. Yeah.
But a lot of residential. But really, this is not a move for, if you want to do lots and lots of residential water damage, this is not the best way to do it. You can easily do Google ads and get really good at SEO, TPAs, and go that route. But if you want to do large loss commercial water damage, this is absolutely the way to go. So our Cincinnati location, we did 3.4 million in plumbing, emergency service plumbing, and we generated $2.7 million in large loss commercial water damage. The second reason why people want to get in is they want to start another business and get that second source of income, and they don't want to run a second business. So a lot of restoration guys, they're making good money. They've built the restoration business up, but it is a full-time job for them. So they're looking in real estate. They're even looking at other franchises, totally unrelated. But when they see our Cincinnati location, out of that 2.4 million or 3.4 million, we made 7 figures in profit last year. So it's a highly, highly profitable business.
Plus the 2.7 million in water damage.
Yeah, not even including the water damage. Number 2 is they want to get out of number 3 is they want to get out of TPAs and large loss rebuilds.
Desperately.
Desperately.
That's one of the biggest
their
reasons.
Quality of life is horrible.
But number 2 was that they want more water damage. And the source of income, 1 and 2, and 3 is TPAs.
Yeah, and I think that's like, especially considering the landscape today, right? And look, again, like I said, we're all part of the groups, we're all going to the conferences, we're hearing the exact same stories, right? And again, for everybody out there in the interwebs, and that's maybe listening, personally, and I've said this a million times, I got to say this again, I personally do not have a horse in the race. I don't care if you are a huge TPA fan and that's how you're built and that's what works for you. Amen, brother. Just keep on doing your thing. If you are die hard, never want to do TPA, brother, I'm in your corner too. Like, I don't have a horse in the race, right? You just got to figure out what's working for you. But there are a huge percentage of restoration companies that have been doing TPA or thought that the next level to their growth was going to be a TPA, and they aren't built for it, or it's got way too many other issues that they have to like reformat. And it's almost like kind of giving themselves a secondary job. So instead of getting that big bump to that next level of quote unquote success, it's like all of a sudden they're like, oh man. So they are actively looking for, how do I still get this growth in my business? How do I preserve my mental bandwidth? And they're kind of like always hunting around. And I think that this is such an amazing solution because it kind of does what it's supposed to do. Like, what does a water mitigation company want? They want more water mitigation jobs. Like, you know, they don't want to become roofers. They want more water mitigation jobs. So this system kind of like lets them fulfill all of these needs.
Yep, Rico, you're spot on. One of the things that I think is important for me, somebody who's 56 years old, and I just don't want to work that hard anymore, to be honest with you, was that I didn't want another company to run. And I tell them every day that I took a kid 1 month out of college, and within 3 years, we've got $1 million in profit business plus 2.7 million walking in the door from water damage, okay? What we do, the number 4 reason, is because we give them a turnkey operation. They don't have to run this plumbing business. They give us a person, and we put that person and we train them up and we walk it through to where they basically manage the plumbing company from a helicopter, is what we always say. Because you know, it's your business. You always want to be looking down on it. You can run it, and we give you certain key KPIs to manage against. And if you manage against those KPIs, you're going to have a very successful, very profitable, very lucrative plumbing business. That doesn't even include the water damage that's walking in the door.
The power of a system.
And I'll give you a quick example of that. Our very first franchise that went live, that was in a corporate store, they've opened up their second location already, and they went in the black. They went in the black in 10 months.
And that includes fully recouping their initial
10 months.
investment.
So from walking in the door, stroking that first check, like actually they're ready to rock and roll, right? 10 months to be 100% in the black. That's unheard of.
Yep, they went profitable, complete profit, recouping everything. And just so you know, too, they only had 1 month where they lost money. They of those 10 months, 9 were profitable, including their very first month.
That's absolutely amazing.
So so they've come back to us, and we didn't tell you this part, but we've got a deal with them where they're opening 20 locations in the next 5 years. That's how excited they are about it. So I feel like a salesman here, but you're absolutely right. We've got a system for the restoration industry that's
so
amazing.
On that note, what I want to do is I want to get into 2 major aspects of this. One is really the importance of like KPIs, right? Because KPIs, if you go into the restoration side, right, the water mitigation, mold remediation side, not many people really talk about KPIs, right? Like they know it's kind of this important thing that needs to be out there, but they don't really understand it.
We talk about it
right,
every day.
exactly. And then I want to take a little bit of a deeper dive into the actual system. And for those that are watching, those that are listening to the podcast, and they're like, well, hey, I'm doing 3 to 4 million. I want to go ahead and get to that next level. But plumbing, I don't know. Like I was kind of jokingly off camera, I was saying, talk to me about, the only thing I know about plumbing is if it involves a shark bite. Outside of that, like I have no idea. So I want to talk about those 2 things. But before we do that, let's take a quick moment to thank our sponsors. Hey, Restoration Nation. So real quick, I want to talk about your estimates. And being in the restoration industry, look, we have to make sure that our documentation is super tight and it's on point. And we want to eliminate as much back and forth with the insurance carrier as much as we possibly can. And this is why I want to talk to you about Impartial. And I really love the name because it's supposed to be impartial. Kind of get it? So the reason why this is such an amazing software is because it uses the technology that most of us are already using, which is the Matterport technology, and then basically makes this on steroids when it comes down to building your estimates. And Impartial has 3 main offerings that I want to talk to you about real quick, starting off with Impartial Scope. Now, when we're talking about Impartial Scope, Impartial scope basically allows you to generate a carrier approved worthy estimate. And basically the way that it does this is by extracting all of the relevant data from pre-mitigation as well as your post-mitigation scans, and packages this up in such an amazing way to where it eliminates so much back and forth. And again, the whole idea as our industry evolves is to harness the power of this kind of technology. Not only that, but it also has another offering, which is Impartial Embed. And basically what this does is it gives you the ability to go ahead and tag with highlights, your general scope notes, mitigation activity, moisture readings, and so much more information. You even have the ability to go ahead and upload JPEG pictures, PNG, ESX, and so much more right into the Impartial tags, which makes your documentation that much more tight, which ultimately leaves less room for people on the other end to have much of an opinion as to what your estimate is about. Because again, this is all about harnessing real physical data. So not only that, there's obviously a lot of industries or a lot of instances where you're going to need to make some changes to your estimate. And lately what we've been seeing is a lot of back and forth between Xactimate and Symbility, which leads us to Impartial Convert, where it basically takes any estimate and can change it between Xactimate and Symbility and vice versa, and really makes this entire process very, very easy. And we've got something really special for you, Restoration Nation, for listening to the show, watching the show, and it's an amazing offer that I want to go ahead and extend to you. And that is if you head on over to info@impartial, and that's impartial.io/domination. And again, the link is going to be in the video description as well as in the show notes below. You're going to get an amazing offer, and that is a total of 99% off their enterprise plan. So just go ahead and visit info.impartial.io/domination. Go ahead, check them out. You're going to be happy you did. Photo documentation is possibly one of the most important aspects of what it is that we do in the restoration business. Not only so that the client knows exactly what's going on, but also so that you can prove your work to insurance companies. One of the best ways that I found to go ahead and document our projects is by using Company Cam. Company Cam is an amazing app. It has so many features, everything from time-stamped and GPS located photos, individual project files, unlimited photo storage, in-app communication with your crew, a live stream of all of your projects as the photos are coming in, as if it was an Instagram feed. So from a managerial standpoint, Company Cam can help you there as well. But more importantly, it gives you the ability to protect your organization while documenting and keeping everything nice and neat. So we've got a really special offer for you. If you go to companycam.com/dominate, not only will you get your 14-day free trial, but you're also going to get the first 2 months 50% off. So again, head on over to companycam.com/dominate, get the app, and I'm sure you're going to love it. All right, guys. So we're back. So far, tons of fun, tons of excitement. I know that if you're a restoration contractor, you're like, I want to know more, and more we will give you. So let's talk about the importance of KPIs first and foremost, right? Because I think that this is going to be like an important top level, because I think that maybe, and correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of the decisions that you made, even while you were in the planning phase, were driven by these first mental KPIs, and then how that was translating into the real world. So if I was just a regular Joe Schmo, you don't know me, and I'm like, hey man, I'm struggling with my business, would KPIs to you, would that be one of the first things that you are mentoring me on or coaching me on? Would you start digging deep into the KPIs and talk to us about, if we're not tracking KPIs, what kind of KPIs should we be looking for?
I think, in my opinion, the most important thing that I look at, and I encourage all of our owners and GMs to look at, is job costing. So basically figuring out on every job, how much did it cost to get that work in the door? What was your labor burden and what was your materials? And then trying to figure out what would you like to hit and what's the minimum you have to hit?
Which ours is 82%. If we don't hit 82%, it needs to be evaluated.
freak out.
Yeah, prices need to go up and so on and so forth. I will tell you, as far as KPIs go, there's, and I'll have Cameron talk a little bit more about these three things, but there's three things that we talk to our franchisees about. One is KPIs, Cameron will go into that. Two is customer service, and three is culture. We're big on culture, and we only onboard people that have happy employees, people that want to be part of something. And those are the three things that we look at, and I'll have Cameron go into those a little bit.
Yeah, so I mean, well, another KPI is customer service, but that can easily be measured with the KPI. So if you're giving excellent customer service on the phone, which over the phone, a lot of people don't realize that. And when I kind of deep dive in and listen to their calls, I realize they're really giving too much customer service over the phone. And what I mean by that is our average dispatcher averages a 74% conversion rate. And normally when I look into an underperforming dispatcher, it's not that their customer service is bad. They've gone through our training and they're actually delivering excellent customer service, but they're keeping the customer on the phone for too long. More often than not, we have a saying, if it's over 2.5 minutes, just get them off the phone and book the call, because the longer they're on the call for, they're like, well, maybe I should press shop, maybe I should.
Exactly.
Where if 2.5 minutes in, if they already have the text message confirmation confirming you're going to be there and you're hurrying them off the phone in an extremely polite and respectful way, you're going to be good there. Another thing is, just getting reviews, and we also do surveys. We're huge on that for customer service. Culture, of course, is extremely important.
It's paramount.
Yeah, probably. I mean, that actually is probably more important than KPIs. I think a business with excellent culture will outperform a business with
100%. And we'll take a deeper dive into culture, but I wanted to go ahead and kind of set the stage here with the KPIs, because I wanted to highlight in particular, like the things that you're measuring, because not many people measure the amount of time that's being spent on the phone and how that translates into a closing rate. And these are, again, the devil's in the details, right? So when I'm talking to people, I'm like, hey, like, what are you measuring? Because if you can't measure it, if you're not measuring it, you're not going to be able to improve on it. You're not going to be able to identify like areas that you're weak. So the fact that you guys are really taking this very, very deep dive into each and every single aspect of your business, this kind of leads into the effectiveness of the system, where someone can go in and within 10 months, you know what I mean? They're turning a profit, and they're talking about, 20 locations. Like, that's what it should be all about. So kind of, switching gears here into the system. Let's talk about that. What was that development process like for the system? And then now, me as an individual who says, you know what, I want to be part of this. I want to have this second business. What can I expect when you guys basically give me the keys to this whole new business model?
Okay, so it was a couple questions. So really the development in the system, what we did is we looked at every single little thing we did, and we documented it for about 3 to 6 months, and we made every single thing into a checklist. So our Cincinnati location, really our first year, there was no system. I was the system. And the reason why it was so profitable and ran so well is because I was there every single day. Even when I was sick with the flu, I was calling everyone every day. And that's not ever going to make a successful franchise. So what we did is, I've got my right hand, her name's Angie. Her and I just documented, and we made checklists. And then what we did is we refined the checklist, and we brought in a guy named Sonny, who's also been incredibly essential to the franchise.
Let me add to that.
Yep.
Okay, the thing and the difference that we had that other people hadn't, as Cameron's developing these checklists and evaluating the KPIs, from everything from the phone call to the customer satisfaction at the end, we were bringing in consultants to the tune of about $300,000. Okay, and they were helping us along the way, people that have franchised major franchises, and we were able to help us put the system in place, because like yourself probably and me, a $6 million restoration company, we don't have the time to just do these checklists and put things in place and then run the KPIs and then check it and still run the company. So we had to bring these people in who do this for a living and are way smarter than us most of the time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And also a fresh set of unemotional eyes.
And they were brutal. I'm not going to lie. When they would come in, we would be like, we thought we were kings of the world, and they were going to come in and go, wow, you guys are awesome and great. And they would rip it apart and make it so much better. And at the, it was a little painful at first, but at the end of the day, once we started putting those systems in place, and they were absolutely right that these systems were amazing, and we started using them, and the profit and the money started coming in. We're like, let's hire another consultant, let's hire another one until it was
let's go through it all over again.
Right? Yeah. So it was, and then at the end of the day, and we still bring in consulting from time to time.
And actually, something else I think is incredibly important for us is having excellent mentors. And for us, actually, really, and for me personally, my biggest mentor in the franchise business is a man named Philippe, and he's a French guy, and he bought Buffalo Wings and Rings out of bankruptcy. So I don't know if you guys are too familiar with them, but I mean, like 15 years ago, they were doing horribly. Their stores were all beat down and rough, and within the past 15 years, the brand's been totally reformed. Now they're one of the fastest growing franchises in the U.S.
And the world. They've got 25 in Saudi Arabia, but he's been a big guy with him. Yeah. So
nice. Yeah, mentors, and something that we talk about on the show like all the time is the importance of, getting the consultants, getting the mentorship, filling in the gaps, and this is like a big ego thing sometimes for a lot of entrepreneurs, right? Because we're so we're so like high strung, and we want to like dominate, and we want to go ahead and be the guys that figure it out, but like there's a shortcut to it all, right? Yep. Like there's just a better way to do it.
Yeah. It's a great way to put it, and it's eye opening when you think you've got this thing and you're showing them, hey, we're making 78% net profit. We couldn't wait for them to get here so we could brag. And then they show them,
right, shoulders are back, chest is a little out. You're like, oh, this is going to be a good meeting.
Yeah. And then they showed us the way that we could do it, and like digging or excavating and redoing is another thing. They showed us how we could make 90% profit, net profit, gross profit on these. And
right.
It was like so eye-opening. And Cameron and I are looking at each other like, wow, I thought we were doing it really well, but now this is like amazing, So we started instituting these things, and then we were able to pay the plumbers more. Everybody was making more. Customers were happier, and it was just like you said. You just got to put your ego aside, and math is math. They would come in and show us mathematically why we need to make these changes, and so you can't argue with math. Once that was laid out in front of us, we started putting the changes in place, and we started getting more water damage.
Right.
And I think you asked a two-part question: how do we develop the system, and what they need to expect when implementing the system?
Right.
So one of our biggest inspirations in the franchise business is McDonald's, and they're an anomaly in my opinion because their burgers are, hopefully I don't offend anyone, but I actually think they make some of the worst burgers that you can buy. But they're so prolific because they do a lot of things right. And our system is based off what's called a bolt-on model. So a huge part of their success is, have you ever been to like a Love's truck stop, or there's probably, pretty much every truck stop, there's a Love's by itself, and what McDonald's has done is they've sold them a bolt-on. So they literally, and that's the legal term, they just bolt right on the side. And what it does is it creates a two-headed monster. So people are already getting off the exit because they need gas and going to the Love's truck stop, and then they're funneling them over to the McDonald's. And also people see that big golden M and they get off, and while they're there,
might as well get gas.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Really our whole system has been modeled off that. It's
per a consultant that came in that worked with McDonald's.
Exactly. Yeah. And actually created that system.
And again, this is where I love to have these conversations, because you could see the patterns, right? Where, again, you're like, what does McDonald's, if someone was to say, what does McDonald's and Love have to do with water mitigation and commercial? On the surface, you'd be like, absolutely not a damn thing, right? But then here is someone who's already got the experience, that those relationships exist. And that's where I say, as an entrepreneur, we kind of constantly have to and this is a very difficult task and exercise, right? Is just erase everything that you know and kind of have that little, 3-year-old boy wonder of business and be like, how does this work? Would this be able to work in my business? And I think that this is like where really amazing things happen.
And actually we kind of knew what we wanted to do, but instead of spending 5 years, we were talking to Philippe, and he set up a meeting with the president of the IFA, which is the International Franchise Association, he's like, instead of spending 5 years creating that system, here, let me introduce you to Michael Saeed, the guy that literally created the system, and it'll save you so much time.
Mm-hmm. Right. Amazing. So me as a restoration business owner, anybody who's watching, anybody who's listening, it's like, okay, well, I'm ready. Like, let's get down to the nitty gritty. How does this affect me? Like, I want to go ahead and participate in this. They're talking about these crazy numbers, all of this, like, helicopter CEO. Like, I want to be that guy. So how do we do that? What does that look like for me?
Yeah. So the biggest thing is just following the system, and the first thing they have to do is they have to hire a general manager, and that's pretty common with any franchise. And we actually highly recommend that you find a GM without any plumbing experience whatsoever. It's for my.
You don't want to hire bad habits. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
And we're not really a plumbing company. We're a sales organization that does service plumbing.
Oh my God, this is.
Yep.
Yeah. So we don't want
guys.
We don't want.
How many times on this show have I said that you're not a restoration company. You are a sales and marketing company that just so happens to offer restoration services.
That's what we do. Thank you. I say that to my guys all the time. I might get you on the phone so you can say it to them, so they just hear a different voice.
So they hear it from somebody else, right?
We say that to our plumbers and everybody. And you can ask any of our plumbers what we do for a living, and they'll tell you that we're a sales organization that happens to sell service and emergency plumbing.
Yep, and actually it drives me crazy because every once in a while it'll slip through the cracks and someone will hire a dispatcher that worked for a previous plumbing company. And I always laugh because I'll ask the dispatcher the first question, and it's always, what's the most important thing you do? And they always say, like, I answer the customer's questions and I put them on the schedule. I'm like, whoa, no. You sell the customer on our services, and in that process, you sell them on water damage as well. Those are the two most important things you can do. You're a salesperson. If you think you're
anything else other than that, right? You're missing it. And this is and again, we're going to finish on the whole system thing. But let's circle back around to that, because that is part of the culture aspect, right? That whole mindset, that underlying term. Because if I could walk into any one of your stores, any one of your locations, and if I could ask, which ideally this should be the goal, I think, for most organizations, and I say, what do you do? And they're like, we're warriors, or whatever that is, right? For some reason that scene from the movie 300 came to mind.
We are Spartans.
Yeah. It's like, we're warriors. Anyway, so, but like something like that's really important, right? Is to have that same unified message across the board. The person who's answering the phone, their primary job is to sell, right? So, so the first thing you were saying, the most important aspect is to follow the system, get a GM who's not jaded by previous experience, right? Ideally. And then what else? What's the next step?
We bring them in here and train them. We actually put them we have them answering the phone. We have them hands-on, put things in the system. Basically, we show them our system, how to teach, and teach them how to follow the checklist religiously. Because we use the airplane model. Like a pilot that's been flying an airplane for 40 years, still before he takes off has to read the checklist. If you want to be successful in flight or successful in plumbing, you got to follow the checklist.
And that's the biggest thing we do, is we just beat the checklist into their head. To start up a one-time plumber, we've got a checklist. You start at number one and you end at number 128, and you do not deviate from the system whatsoever.
Yeah, and to put it mildly too, like when you keep beating the checklist, you're talking about 4 things sometimes on a checklist. It's, to start the franchise, it's 128 things, but to end the day, you're talking about 3 things that you want to look at, or 2 things, or if a plumber before he pulls out of the driveway has 2 things that he has to do before he pulls out of the driveway. So it's comprehensive as far as everything from the time the phone rings, and we call womb to the tomb, till we shake the customer's hand, and then we resolicit them again with some coupons and things like that. There is a complete and utter checklist system from beginning to end that gets really easy. And once the money starts rolling in, like the one that became profitable in 10 months, if you follow that system, you really start loving the system because the money starts rolling in.
And also what we do is then we train the ownership on how to hold the GM accountable to the checklist. I can literally, within 20 minutes, I can skim through every single thing the GM's done over the past week. And if they've missed a single item on their checklist, I'll know.
It's glaring.
It's glaring.
And they love it because literally an hour a week, they can manage a very profitable plumbing company. And we teach the owners how to do that as well.
Right. Which is ideally what all business owners want, right? Like when you got into business, you're like, ideally I want to spend more time with my son, my daughter, my wife, my cousin, whatever it is, right? I want to spend more time doing other things, and I want to have this thing that I can look at that is following a system that if there's something wrong, I can identify it quickly and effectively and tackle it.
And actually, not to get too off topic, but that's why a lot of our franchisees have started plumbing businesses on their own and actually been highly successful with those plumbing businesses. But what they've said is like, I may be making a lot of money on the plumbing business, but I'm devoting 30 of my hours a week. Like I'd way rather just pay the royalties so that way I can cut that down to 1 hour a week.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And we've been...
Because you can make more money, right? And I want to talk about this, right? Because this is important because I know, unfortunately, that there's just a percentage, but like, well, I could figure it out myself and I'll do it. Cool. But then invest 30 hours of your week. You could always make more money. You can buy more territories. You can have a better system. You can't buy back more time like that. You're never going to get back, right? Like
it's the most valuable commodity.
That's it, right? Like what did you say? There was like, and we were talking. Was it off? Yeah, it was off camera. We were talking about a situation where you're like, how much is it worth for me to like go into work with my son every single day? Like, is there a dollar figure for that? And there's not. Like, I mean, you can't.
And I'm sure everyone listening to this has started their own restoration business, and they're an incredibly smart guy that can figure things out. Or lady. Yeah.
Or lady. It's 2022. It's across the board.
If they want to clock in and they want to put the grind in and they want to hop in a truck, get dirty, they want to answer phones and do everything it takes to start a business, I have no doubt that pretty much anyone listening to this podcast could start their own plumbing company and be successful. However, if you don't want to invest that time, but you still want a highly successful plumbing company, that's where we come in.
Right. So we've got this 120 point checklist or whatever from, soup to nuts, right? Or what'd you say? Womb to tomb, right? Basically the whole thing. And then, so now my GM, he's already hired. I shipped him off to you guys. You guys are going ahead and you're training him. When he comes back, he's a superstar. Then what?
Well, then I move in with you guys for the first week. And we were actually talking about this yesterday. It's almost always, they've been trained, but then they get through the startup checklist and they remember how to do each individual task, but they don't remember the order. So I always make fun of them because I'm like, the first day I kind of sit back and let them do it. And it's like they're trying to build a house, but they're building the roof first, then they're onto the foundation, and then it starts raining, so they're running up and putting shingles on it. And the whole time they realize they never built any walls to begin with in the first place.
Right.
So what I do is then I go in and just reorganize them. I have them print off the checklist, and I'm like, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and I just have them to be religious to it. And by the end of the week, they're humming. Yeah, they're humming. They're doing twice as much in literally a third the time that they were at the very start of the week.
Yep. And that's the first week. The other thing that we do that I think is important is that we actually train their salespeople. We bring them here, we put them in the vehicle with our salespeople, teach them how to go in, how to hunt business, what to say, how to get comfortable selling plumbing and restoration together. And then we send them back for 2 weeks, let them get away from the system a little bit, trying to figure it out their own way. And then our salespeople actually, like Cameron said, move in and get in the car and teach them how to hunt in their particular area. Mm-hmm. And so we're big on training top to bottom, from the GM to the owners, to the salespeople, even the plumbing. The plumbers move in with us for a week before they go out on the road. So it's a comprehensive step-by-step to get this up and going. And and I know it sounds salesman-y, but it's true. We're all about support and training and getting them to do it the way we're doing it, because plumbing,
well, the system works. Like, if you have a system that works, you have to stick to the system. I mean, you can, there's moments and times where life, you have to have this small little blip or deviation. And I get that, right? Like on a presentation, like not every presentation is 100% identical, but you're still following this entire system. And that's where I think the magic happens.
Yeah, and just to go off of that, what scares most owners at first before they start talking to us is they're like, I would love to start a one-time plumber, but I don't know anything about plumbing.
Right.
And what they don't realize is it's like, you don't have to be a chef to start up a Wendy's.
Right.
We've got a checklist for every single job. I'm sure just like Wendy's has like how to cook their patty, you probably put it on for like 30 seconds or something, flip it exactly, season it lightly. As long as you can read and you can follow a checklist, you can start a one-time plumber business.
And keep in mind, I've got 3 of them up and going, and I've been on one plumbing job.
Right, exactly.
You can do this without ever going to a plumbing job.
Exactly.
By using a system and KPIs and training and culture.
Right.
And if you guys do have to take good photos, but I have a checklist that says exactly per job what to look for in each photo.
Mm-hmm. Right. So, and of course, you guys highly recommend Company Cam, right? Because they're the show sponsors. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We wouldn't be as successful as we are without it.
That's amazing. I love how he rolls with it too. It's like totally he doubles down immediately. So obviously it's a turnkey system. I think that we all get that. So now they've got all this training, right? I'm super excited. I've got my stuff. My GM is ready to rock and roll. But there's like this one thing that we didn't talk about. It doesn't matter how good of a system we have. It doesn't matter how good my plumbers are. It doesn't matter. And none of this matters until this bad boy, this phone starts ringing with customers. So let's talk about that. How do they, and I'm sure that there's multiple approaches here, but the people that you're going after, right, or that are approaching you, I should say, are restoration contractors anyway. So they're already doing waterman. So there's a little bit of a treasure trove there that they probably can tap into. But how do they start prospecting or how do they start marketing for new business to come in?
So
it's a two-headed monster. I'll take the first part, which is my place. When it comes to businesses and corporations and apartment complexes, as you know, it's about relationships. Okay. And here's I'll give you a little bit of the secret sauce. It's very easy. You got to have a salesperson going out building relationships, okay? If you really want to get the commercial. If you're just doing it for restoration, it's almost pointless because you're going to maintain this relationship for maybe once every 2 years, okay? I mean, they're going to have a major water loss maybe once every 2 years, okay? But they're going to need plumbing weekly. So what you do is you build those relationships by getting in the door with the plumbing. And you have those, so when the phone call rings and a water line breaks on the 3rd floor of a 4-story building that's made it all the way down to the 1st floor, like Cameron said, we've taught that dispatcher how to manipulate that call to where we're immediately dispatching the water damage crew as well. So now you've got 40 of those customers, and when those things happen every 2 years, you're literally getting 1 or 2 of those, sometimes a week.
Right.
And they're not always the big ones like that. There's a lot of small ones. Now, that's the one approach. That's commercial side. We're about 60-40 across the board and across the country, commercial. Now the 40% is digital. If you want the residential piece, and I'm going to have Kameron talk about that because that's his wheelhouse, but the reason that residential is so important is it's cash flow.
Yes.
You walk out of the house, every time you get paid immediately. And I'll have Kameron talk about that.
So
Cameron's like just chomping at the bit. I see the excitement in his face. He's like, let's go.
So, and I'm going to try to simplify this because when it comes to digital marketing, I've noticed that is like the biggest misunderstanding that most business owners have.
Yes.
They're typically in their 40s and 50s, and most of them don't even know like how Google lays it out. So how Google lays out when you search for plumbing or water damage, at first you've got your Google guaranteed ads, and then you've got your normal Google ads, and then you've got your map pack, and then you've got your organic. So when it comes to like plumbers near me or restoration companies near me, which that's a term we know, and I feel like it's not a very commonly searched term. Most people want to rank high for like restoration companies near me, where that's completely and utterly useless because you've got those three things in front of it. But what most people don't realize is that the average customer does 3 searches before they search for a professional. So, and that's in plumbing. I don't know if restoration is different. But instead of when someone walks in their basement and there's ankle deep water in their basement, they don't immediately search plumber near me. That's a huge misconception. They're going to search like, why did my basement flood? And then they're going to figure out what that caused that. Then they're going to be like, why did my sump pump fail? New sump pumps, average cost of a sump pump. Why did my pipe break? Stuff like that. So we've got 2 full-time content creators that all they do is create that, and we get millions of impressions every month, and hundreds of thousands of views on our website. And that's where the vast majority of our business comes through.
Content is king. Like, creating good content is always valuable. And you guys may or may not know this, but I have a digital marketing course specifically geared for the restoration arena, right? Water mitigation, mold remediation, because I owned an agency and I would give this advice, basically what you said didn't work. Like all marketing agencies were like, well, we need to rank for this. So of course, what did I do? I did what everybody else does. And I was giving this advice from the marketing agency. I opened up a restoration industry and I was like, oh wait, hold on. Like that doesn't translate really well. Like those likes and those, like I can't deposit that. So I need like the phone to actually ring. So we changed the approach. And then now with the contractor hat on, I know what works. And the thing is that the digital marketing, and I hate to say even digital marketing at this point, because marketing is marketing, right? You're a salesperson and you're a marketer. You should be marketing, every time that you shake a hand and kiss a baby. You should be marketing every time that your fingertips land on a computer. You should be marketing like at all times, right? But the system now on the digital side is not what it was back in the 90s, where you had to know like HTML. Kind of like you have that checklist that you're talking about. It's like, hey, you want a multi-million-dollar business? Can you read? Okay, good. Can you follow along? Perfect. Well, now if people have the ability to click a mouse and watch this or listen to this, guess what? You can be a really, really dangerous digital marketer, right? Like you can get really lethal with it, right?
Yep. And we do all that in-house. Everything you said, Rico, is so imperative to success that you want to control it yourself for the most part.
Exactly.
Okay. And that's why we do it in the house. And all 18 markets that are in right now, if you pulled our numbers, you would see that we are number 1 in the digital space on all 4 of those content creations that Kameron mentioned. And we're going to stay there.
And I can promise you that if you would have outsourced that to a marketing agency, you just would not have that kind of domination in your local marketplace. So, and I've been saying this for a while, and I can, to some degree, you're kind of like a case study of how effective this really is. The companies that are going to become wildly successful, that are going to dominate, are the ones that are bringing their marketing in-house, grabbing the bull by the horns, and just taking full control of it.
And that's what we've done.
Actually, I am a viewer of your podcast as well, and I think you're one of the very few people that understands the power of content. Pretty much everyone, I'm like, so what digital marketing do you do? Oh, we do tons of digital marketing. I'm like, so what do you do? Oh, Google ads. Like that's
Yeah.
I just laugh.
And for old guys like me who don't understand, and I'll be honest with you, I sat through a lot of those meetings early on because I was pumping money into it. And and Cameron and his digital crew, and finding out exactly what points, how we become the top in each market, and it was like sitting there watching two Chinese people talk in Chinese. Where I basically was like, okay, so I set a couple of KPIs, or and that's what I run it against because I honestly just didn't understand what the hell they were talking about.
So,
and I don't need to, because
nor do you want to.
Yeah.
I mean, look, if that's what tickles your fancy, then by all means, right? I mean, go, whatever. But if you don't need to, and the system is working and it's making money, like that's really the metric that you're looking at. You're like, is my bank account going up or down at the end of the day?
Are we number one in these in these particular areas? And these are the KPIs that we want to be number one in, because that's what's, like you said, that's what's going to make the phone ring. And we get monthly reports on that, and we are number one, and we will stay number one in each one of those markets. In fact, we're kicking like a Roto-Rooter. Everybody knows Roto-Rooter. They're a national brand. They're a multi-billion-dollar company in every market that we've been in. Sorry, any Roto-Rooter people that might be listening to this, but we're kicking your ass digitally, and we're going to continue to.
And that's the advantage.
Because if we're not,
and that's the advantage of having having the system in-house, where you have rapid deployment of ideas, of concepts. You've got your finger on the pulse of the market. Nobody can move faster than you. And more importantly, nobody cares as much as you, right? Because that could be the largest digital marketing company on the planet. You're just another client for me, right?
And what you're saying, I mean, it sounds obvious to me, but to a lot of people, they don't realize, but we're a sales organization that does plumbing and a sales organization that does water damage. I think the craziest thing you can do is not control your marketing. I mean, you're a sales company. How?
Yeah.
But so I think that is the biggest takeaway.
So now we've got this so far. My guys are trained. You've come in. I moved in for a while. You moved in for a while. I know that my phone is about to ring. So now how do I get to this next part, which is really the heartbeat of the company, right? It's the heartbeat of how my customer is going to perceive me, how we're going to interact with our community, how me as this franchise owner, how I'm going to really impact the lives of the people that come and join me on this mission, which is culture, right? What's your interpretation of great company, amazing company culture, and how do we maintain that?
Well, that's actually a great question, and it's paramount. And we call it the 20 percenters. We only let our franchisees, and we help them with this. Like Cameron said, we're literally on the calls, and we only want the 20 percenters. And people are like, 20 percenters, that's terrible. And I'm like, no, it's the opposite. 80% of the work gets done by 20% of the people. Okay, we want those 20%. And if you don't have that person, let them go. And within 2 weeks. And we tell them this. And a perfect example was we had one plumber in Columbus. He wasn't a 20%er when we first opened up. We let him go and didn't have a plumber for another 2 weeks because we didn't want anybody less than a 20%er going out and talking to our customers, especially commercial customers that we're going to build relationships with for years. So once you get to 20%ers, those are the people that care about the company. They're diligent, they work hard, and mostly they care about each other. They like each other. They want other people around them like themselves. So we're very particular about who we onboard from a national standpoint. And then we do things that on Tuesdays, for example, these are two things that we do. We do training the guys, and we let them train each other. So we don't just sit up there and talk. We actually, who's good at what, we bring them in, they put a training program together for their team, and then every week somebody else does it. That's for half an hour to 45 minutes once a week. And then on Fridays, and it's Thursdays at some locations, it's Wednesdays at other locations, 1 hour at the beginning of the day, everybody comes in and they sit around and BS. They talk about the new house they got. Somebody had a new kid, the vacation they went on, where they're going. But they sit around and literally talk for 1 hour. You got to give them 1 hour a week to just know each other, kid around with each other, be part of each other. And it's amazing what a camaraderie you build just by doing that 1 hour a week. And it's worth every penny. You may lose some money by not being out on customers, but it's so worth it because you've got people that are going to make it up in effort. And we feel like those are the just to to give you a broad answer, those are some of the things that we do, and we do it in the restoration company as well.
And I actually think there's something else. I think a lot of business owners are too afraid to turn down work to build a good culture. I hear all the time when I'm like, hey, you need to get rid of this plumber. They're like, I can't get rid of him. He produces $40,000 a month. How am I going to replace him? It's like, well, the issue is that dude or that lady, they're a huge whiner. They whine and it brings
cancer.
everyone
Right.
else
It's cancer
down.
to the environment.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if they're bringing in 100,000 a month. You're better off turning down work and keeping your guys happy.
And replace them with another 20%er. Yeah. And here's one thing that I think is important to know, and this will scare some potential franchisees. We don't have a single plumber that was here the entire year of 2021 and that didn't make over 100. And what that does, though, is it makes it so much easier to hire people because we pay more than everyone else.
Well, so, and this is an important topic as well when we're talking about money and we're talking about what, is going to, good quality people, they're out there and they don't want to necessarily be an entrepreneur. They want to be part of an organization, but at the same time, they have a family or they want to buy a house or, they want to go on a vacation every once in a while. You can't do that on $45K a year anymore, right? So you're not going to get $1 million producer for 40 grand a year, right? So how do you have to make that decision, and where, kind of going back to your point about they're scared about letting their producers go. That translates into what you're paying your people, the perks that you're giving people, because at the end of the day, it's all really just a psychological aspect, right? It's scared money, and scared money doesn't make money. So how do you get that franchisee? I mean, I would imagine probably with you guys, he probably doesn't even make it in, right? But like, how do you gauge that initial mindset?
We show them the math. We show them that you're going to pay more than anyone else in the area, but here's the math behind it. And if you're scared to do that, you're going to cost yourself money.
And our average plumber outproduces the average plumber nationwide by over double. So it's like you can pay someone $50,000 for average, or you can pay someone $100,000 to $140,000 for excellent. And then the advantage you have with excellent is you still have one truck, one set of tools, one camera, one jet. I mean, the math speaks for itself. It's a no-brainer.
And we help, and that's part of what we put together, and that's why we're on the calls, especially early on, bringing in the plumbers. And a great example is when we first, and Cody was one of our first hires. He's a probably $60,000 a month plumber. When he showed up at the place where you buy all this stuff, what do you call it? The supply house. Thank you. And with the pink plunger on the side of the truck, he said everybody was making fun of him. He says now, when he walks in, everybody is asking him, like they literally stop him, grab him by the arm, are you guys hiring?
Right.
Are you guys hiring?
How things have changed,
and we
right?
ran an ad in September and got 92 applications locally when people can't hire anyone. So everybody knows what you're paying. Everybody knows what you're doing. Plumbing is a small community, probably like restoration in your area. They know that in our markets that we're paying more than anyone else, and we're treating the plumbers better than anyone else, and we have the culture. And once you get up and going and that word spreads, you can hire the best. In fact, they'll find you.
That's amazing, guys. So if someone wanted to go ahead and get more information, they're like, man, this sounds really exciting. This is what I've been looking for. Where do they go? Is there a website? Is there a social media handle? Where should they go and hunt you guys down?
Yeah, so they can absolutely go to our website. They may just want to give us a phone call.
Cool.
And it's One Tom Plumber. The name is the phone number.
There we go. So what I'll do for all of the viewers and all of you guys on podcast land out there, I'm going to go ahead and leave. I'm also going to go ahead and drop like all of your links and all of that stuff. It'll be in the video description below, as well as in the show notes. And just pick up the phone, shoot them a call. I mean, you're hearing it directly from the horse's mouth at this point. And I got to say, it's really exciting, guys. And I really wish that we could have spent an additional 2 hours together, because there's so much that we could potentially cover. But at this stage in the game, I would say amazing business, amazing mindset, and what you guys are doing for the industry, I think, is amazing. So thank you so much for jumping on the show today and sharing your experience.
Do you want Cameron's cell phone number?
Yeah,
go ahead, give it right now, and then I'm also going to go ahead and tap it into the video description.
All right, it's 513-478-3300. give me a call if you want.
Awesome, cool. And I'll go ahead and I'll pop that on the screen, and we'll have it on the show notes and all that good jazz. But again, guys, thank you so much for taking the time today to spend it with all of our listeners and all of our viewers. It was very, very educational. Again, thank you so much for taking the time. It was tons of fun.
All right,
Thanks,
Rico, you're the man. Thank you, bro.
Thank you.
All right.
You've been listening to Restoration Domination, interviewing the restoration business's top industry insiders, the movers and shakers, the hustlers and hackers. We hope you've gotten some useful and practical information from the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review. Hook up with us on Instagram and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Restoration Domination to catch video interviews, highlights, and behind-the-scenes content. And follow your host at Rico Garcia Jr. Till next time, this is Restoration Domination. Hustle, hack, dominate.